this is about how I found my voice. When I was a small child, I was shy, and apparently, according to my classmates, I was weird looking. I had big lips, big nose, small eyes, and a huge forehead. And they teased me horribly every day. And I would go home and tell my brother and my sisters, and they were like, "You're beautiful. You look just like us. You're fine." But every day I would be tormented by these kids, and I felt horrible and small and like I didn't matter. And my mother and father thought that it was just a phase and I would eventually get past it and be okay. And a couple years later, when I was in 6th grade, they had their final fight in the house and decided they would separate permanently. And they did. And my mother decided at that point that she didn't want any memories of her husband in her house anymore. And my brother and I were his only children. So she decided to not raise us anymore. And on January 3rd, 1980, she took my brother and I to a city facility and put us in the care of the Department of Human Services. We were placed in a group home in West Oak Lane in Philadelphia, and we stayed there until mid-August when we were placed in foster care. What we didn't know at that time is that our foster parents didn't want a son. They only wanted a daughter, but they took us together because they wanted to get that girl. And they did. They got rid of my brother midway through the school year when we were in 7th and 8th grades. My brother is 13 months older than I am. And they got rid of him, and I was devastated. But I didn't have a voice. I couldn't tell anybody I was sad or that I missed him. Nobody cared. And eventually there were some incidents at my foster home and I had to leave. And I thought my dad at that point, because he came to my rescue to get me, I thought he was going to take me to live with him at that point. But he decided to keep me with him and his girlfriend at the time until a second foster home could be found for me. And in November of my junior year in high school, they found one. And that's when I went to live in South Philly. Most of you know I love South Philly. And so I lived there through the end of high school and through the first couple of years of college. And even though I was in foster care, Philadelphia is such a small city. I ran into my family all the time. Nobody wanted to spend time with me, but they would see me and tell me how well everyone else was doing at the time. And as a kid, you don't know any better. You don't know what's really good for you. You just want your family back. So I would run into my natural mother downtown a lot in Philly, and she would always tell me what a disappointment I was to her, how much she didn't want me, and how I would never amount to anything. I would never have a job, a career, college, a family of my own. And that stuck with me for a really long time. I eventually, in my senior year, decided I wanted to go to college, and my father had a girlfriend at the time who was friends with the dean of admissions at Temple University, where he got his undergraduate degree. And he helped me fill out the application, get all the essays ready, take the exams, and I got a scholarship to Temple that was partial athletic, and I loved it because Chris, you know I'm a runner, or I was a runner, and I did it. I got my BA. I got it in 5 years, 5.5 years instead of 4, because sophomore year I had my daughter, Shamir, who is the absolute love of my life. But also in between that, I got married and divorced. So I got my degree, and I was amazed that I was able to do this. So I got a good job at a nonprofit in West Philadelphia, Intercultural Family Services, where we helped immigrant Asians come into the country and get the services they needed to get acclimated into the communities. And I was having a good time there. They did good work. I loved it. I was in finance, so I didn't really help the people get the services, but I helped make sure that financing was in place, which was good. And what I found out later is that my natural mother found out where I worked. She reached out to the director of the facility and told them horrible stories about me that were not true. And the director called me to her office one day right around Thanksgiving in 2000, no, I'm sorry, in 1995. And she told me they would have to let me go. This woman had called them and she said she was a relative. And these are the things that she said. I didn't know at the time it was my mother, but eventually I did. And she again told me that, yeah, I have this degree and I'm not going to do anything. I'm going to disappoint everyone everywhere I go. And I believe that still because I didn't have anything else. I didn't have anybody else. And my daughter was about 6 at the time, and I had a house, I had a car, I had all of these responsibilities. I had to find another job. So fortunately for me, Comcast Communications in their corporate office at 1500 Market Street, well, their old headquarters, they were looking for an accountant. I took the job once it was offered, and I made amazing friends, had great connections, and just traveled all over the country on their behalf. It was amazing. But my mother found me again and said, this is proof that I don't deserve a family. I can't even stay home to take care of my child. Sorry. So but I kept working, and I worked. I got a few promotions, helped make some amazing deals, and then our corporate accounting team moved to Oaks, Pennsylvania, where I took the opportunity to go as well. And in 2003, I had an opportunity to not work anymore. I had made some good investments. I had great savings. My 401k was really nice at the time. And I had some rental properties across the city of Philadelphia. And so I took the opportunity to not work, just let those things pay me while I spent the next couple of years with my daughter as she finished high school. And so in 2003, I left Comcast. In 2001, I left Comcast and moved to Middletown, Delaware, where we had a beautiful home. My daughter was going to an amazing school, and we made a new life for ourselves, and we were happy. And then in 2001, June, I hadn't seen my brother for about 5 years. He moved to Tacoma, Washington, where he was happy and had a great life. Hadn't seen him, and then I'm driving home with a girlfriend. I never look into people's cars purposely because I don't want to see stuff that goes on in people's cars. But I'm driving, and there's this white, huge SUV making a left turn onto Snyder Avenue, and I happened to look up, and it was my brother. So Lisa, who was driving, I stopped her. I'm like, oh my God, and I jumped out the car, and he jumped out of his truck, and we just embraced right there in the middle of the intersection. And people waited. They didn't beep horns or scream at us. And I was like, oh my God, I'm moving to Pottstown next week. I'm moving to Middletown next week. I need you to get in touch with me so that I want to see you. Shamir needs to see you. Shamir's my daughter, by the way. And he was going on vacation that week, so I didn't think I would see him again, to be honest. And he didn't at that time keep in touch with our natural family, so there was no way for me to know where he was or what he was doing. And then 10 days later, he called me and came to visit us at our new house. And I was overjoyed. And for a solid year, I saw him at least once a week. We had dinner together. We went shopping together. He and Shamir was able to solidify that relationship. It was amazing. And also during this time, I had started grad school because I figured I would, eventually need to do some more things. And so she loved her Uncle Mike. He called her Shammy, which she hated because her name is Shamira. But in June 2002, I got a phone call waking me up, telling me that my brother had died the day before. And I was devastated. Horribly devastated. And my mother called me, and her words were, Mike is dead. I said, excuse me? She said, your brother is dead. I was like, I have to go. I need to call somebody who will tell me the truth. So I called my father, and I said, Margaret just called me. What's going on with my brother? He said, Mike died yesterday. He committed suicide. And he is we have to get, like, do all of these things. He's trying to tell me all the logistics of what has to happen. And I couldn't even take it in. So I woke Shamira up and I told her what happened and that I had to run to my job to tell them that I would be out for at least a week or so, and because I had to deal with this. And I got back and she said my sisters had called her and a couple of my cousins had called her. My brother at that time was pretty wealthy and he had a lot of stuff and everybody wanted a piece of it. So we all get together and we go to his house and we figure out some stuff. And, excuse me, I found his will, which I just put in my purse and didn't really think about. And then we planned his funeral. We had the funeral and we moved on. My parents, by the way, offered me $200 collectively to pay for their son's funeral. But after that, Shamir and I, we packed up and went on our way. And my family just kept yelling at me because they wanted his cars and his house and his money and his jewelry. And my father actually, when I went to his house, because I had to get the letter of to be the executive of the estate, my father was wearing my brother's diamond stud earring. And I was like, what are you doing? He was like, well, he wanted me to have this. Okay. So we went on and my mother yelled at me again saying, I need to just make sure that everybody is taken care of. Nothing really matters. I have a job. I have money. I don't need to worry about myself, but my family would need things. I thought that was a lot considering my brother had just died. And how he died was he reached out to our mother about a week before and told her that he wanted to speak to her. And she said, call your sister. That's the only person you've ever needed. Call her. So he did. And he told me about the conversation. I said, come over for dinner. We'll talk. You can spend the night. Whatever. He did. He came. And then he left. And a week later, we got the news. But eventually, I was able to move beyond that. And it took me a long time to get my master's degree. I actually didn't get it until I got to CTDI. And my daughter graduated from high school with honors, and she went to UD. She got her degree, and she's in grad school. She's been in grad school almost as long as I was. And we're doing really well. And I say that to say my family always said I wouldn't be anything. I moved from Philadelphia to Pottstown to Delaware to get a job at Polo Ralph Lauren, where I did good stuff, I like to think. We managed the finances for the contracts of the people who made the Polo Ralph Lauren merchandise. And most of you know that I like designer dresses and shoes and handbags. And so I was at the right company, I thought at the time. But eventually when the housing market broke, Polo Ralph Lauren took their holdings company back to New York, offered us a package to go, and I couldn't go to New York. For one, I can't afford New York. But my daughter was still only in her 20s, so I wasn't willing to leave her. And so I left Polo Ralph Lauren, and I realized at that point I no longer wanted to do accounting, so I needed some kind of change. I didn't know how to get it, though. But I, at that point, wanted to come back to work. And I saw an ad through the agency I was working with, and it was for CTDI to be support for the payroll team, and I was actually the temp who helped Heather while she was on maternity leave with her first child. And although that was not what I wanted to do, I took it because I didn't know what else was here, and I had never heard of CTDI. But I was here for a while, and then Heather came back to work, and I transitioned to help the risk management team because Tabitha, who was my predecessor, left right at that time. And it was amazing. And Conrad Oley, who was the HR director at the time, asked me if I wanted to be in that position, like not permanently, because we don't have permanent jobs at CTDI, of course, but for now. And I was like, I'll try it. I've never done it, but I'll try it. And I took it, and I didn't know what I was doing. I had never done work. I had never worked with people. I had always worked with a computer, spreadsheets, and an adding machine. And then all of a sudden, I had to talk to people about injuries and car accidents and truck accidents and pit equipment incidents. It was horrible, and I was so out of my wheelhouse. I swear, I had never had any intention to work this closely to individual employees, and right now, that's all I want to do. I am the workers' comp, well, I'm the claims manager, and I manage workers' comp auto accident claims, and I help with pit incidents. And I say that to say I love it. I had never done it before. I didn't think I would want to do it. Was told as a child I would never do anything or be anything or even have people who cared about me, but I do, and I love my job. I know I love who I work for and with, and our team is amazing. And I get to meet people from all over the country doing different jobs all the time, and it's great and tiring and exhausting. And I go home and I want to drink, but I don't drink, but I want to drink. I say that to say, in 2009, I found out that my natural father had died. And I told my daughter neither one of us felt anything. And then a few months later, I get a letter from my mother's pension plan administrator telling me that she had died. And unfortunately, I was one of the beneficiaries on her plan. And I didn't feel anything, nothing, because this is a woman and a man who showed me I meant nothing to them and told anyone who would listen that I wouldn't be anything or have anything or even aspire to want anything because I wouldn't know how to do it. And they're gone, and they've been gone at this point nearly 9 years, and I still don't feel anything. And that's not a tragedy. The tragedy was what they did to my life. But the triumph is I'm still here, and I am living my best life right now. And I am happy. Even though I'm crying, I'm happy. So, thank you.
Beautiful.